Hi, I'm Kayla and I'm autistic. Lately I've been making videos related to my autism since my recent official diagnosis. I try to upload a new video every couple of weeks, but it's tough with an 8-month-old. In this video, I'm going to be talking about my labor and delivery story. I've really wanted to make this video for myself for a while now, and I've definitely been putting it off. It's actually probably a good thing that I've been putting it off. I'm glad I'm doing this now after my official autism diagnosis. Just puts a lot of things in context with how I was feeling during labor. I also haven't seen a lot of videos of autistic mothers describing their labor and delivery story, so I think it might be helpful to those who have gone through it, to those who are about to go through it. This is going to be all dialogue. I don't have any video of my actual labor, even though I wanted it. You'll find out why as I describe the story. Biggest takeaway about labor and delivery and having a baby is you can't plan for it, really. There are always going to be multiple things that come up that are unexpected that you're going to have to deal with in the moment, in the middle of labor. It's crazy. You have to relinquish a lot of control if you are autistic yourself, or if you know anything about autism. You know that is like one of the toughest things for an autistic person to do is relinquish control. And there's nothing about my experience with labor that I had any control of. My plan was to do all natural, no epidural, obstetrics, gynecology. All of those things became kind of like my special interest when I was pregnant. And I obsessively researched everything that I could possibly know about what is going to happen, because that's what I needed. I needed to know what to expect. And that's just how I work. Some women don't want to know, and that's totally fine. But I did. So after researching epidurals, I was like, if I cannot get one, that'd be great. Then I don't have to worry about, getting a catheter. I don't have to worry about my legs being too numb, not being able to feel when I need to push. I did have a higher than now idea about doing it all natural, which I realized was very naive. I wanted to channel my inner goddess and experience birth like we were meant to and all this. And I'm rolling my eyes, not because I diss that way of thinking. I think that that's totally great. But I also think every woman who gives birth, no matter how they give birth, they are channeling their inner goddess. Birth is just insane. There's no ideal way to give birth. It's unbelievably intense, and every woman is a goddess. With that said, let's get into it. My daughter was born September 10th, 2020. Her official due date was September 12th, so I gave birth only 2 days before my due date. A little bit about pregnancy without getting into a whole thing and ranting and tangenting. Pregnancy was tough. It was really tough for me. The sensory issues were very apparent. I was even more sensitive to smells, foods, clothing, temperature even. So it was already a lot. But with that said, I was so ready to not be pregnant anymore, even if I had to get through labor to do it. About 5 days before she was due, I started having what's called prodromal labor. And this isn't talked about a lot, only because not a lot of women have it, or if they do, it's pretty mild and it's usually chalked up to Braxton Hicks type of contractions. Prodromal labor isn't real labor, so it's technically still false labor. It's just more of an in-between from Braxton Hicks and early labor, and were painful for me. Painful enough that 4 nights in a row before I actually, went into labor for real, I thought I was in labor. Those 4 days, I was running off of maybe 3 or 4 hours of sleep, because they would wake me up and then I would start timing them and then I'd fall asleep and they'd wake me up, and they came anywhere between every 3 to 5 minutes and every 12 to 14 minutes. So super irregular, still painful enough that they woke me up from my sleep. So about 2 days-ish before I went to the hospital for real. I went to my midwife and I told her I was like having these contractions. They were painful. They're different than the Braxton Hicks contractions I've been having. I wanted her to kind of check me. She basically said, which I agreed, like, we don't really want to check you unless we absolutely have to, just because it can introduce bacteria. I was group B, strep positive. I have a type of strep in my birth canal that can cause issues for the baby. She didn't want to check me. She was pretty sure I wasn't in like real labor. No mucus plug, no water breaking, nothing like that. So I felt reassured. I definitely needed to have that reassurance, I think. And my poor husband, I was like, it's time. And got the bath going, you know, the essential oils diffuser going, the lights, the music. I was on the ball, like, just fucking going to town, and, you know, then they would fizzle out and they would start up again. It was really, really frustrating. Yeah, prodromal labor sucks. So she was born at like 1:30 a.m. on the 10th. So on the 9th, around 8 a.m. hits, it gets more intense and it's a noticeable increase. And they're decently regular. They were coming every 3 to 5 minutes. I was like, okay, I think we should go to the hospital. And my husband was like, okay. I was like really paranoid about going to the hospital and being sent home, but then also paranoid about going too late and having my baby in the car. So lots of anxieties creeping up about that. We got all packed, go into the hospital, check in. I get the monitor on the belly. It's like, I am having contractions. So I'm like, cool. And then of course they like slow down again. We waited there for about an hour and a half to see if anything progressed, because if they did, they were just gonna admit me. She did end up checking me and I was only 1 centimeter dilated, but I was effaced. So dilation and effacement are different. One is related to how big the cervix is getting, and the other is how soft it's getting. Stuff was happening, which was nice to hear after 4 days of, you know, prodromal labor symptoms. So I was, you know, labor was starting, so that was nice. But it wasn't progressing enough that they felt like I needed to stay. So went home, just kind of tried to like relax, I guess. You know, making sure I was drinking lots of water on my labor ball, probably more than I should have been. You know, if I could go back in time and like be like, dude, relax, just sleep as much as you can, rest as much as you can. So I labored at home most of my labor, which I recommend. I knew that's what I wanted because hospitals aren't the most comfy and I can't really control all my surroundings. There's a lot of lights and sounds that are just distracting. So I'm glad I got to spend the majority of my labor at home. It progressively gets more intense. And then about 7 p.m. hits, I have to go to the bathroom and, you know, a contraction comes. You know when you have a hose and you put your thumb over it and then you squish to the side and it just goes whoosh, like really fast? That is the worst analogy. Yeah. It was like throwing up from my vagina. I felt a pressure release and then also at the same time, instant, like, I could feel her head just, that cushion that was there, gone. And things went from a 5 to a 9. And I'm like, oh shit, we need to go to the hospital, like now. I will mention, even before it went from like a 5 to a 9, I was so exhausted and so tired. The communication issues, like I really wanted my husband to like rub my back. I just wasn't able to communicate what I needed already. After my water broke, I called my mom. I kind of explained what the feeling was and she agreed. It sounded like my water had broken. It was interesting. I was actually breathing through my contractions almost unconsciously and not aware of how I wasn't able to talk through them until I called my mom and she was like, ooh, yeah, it sounds like your contractions are really intense. It's so bizarre. Like I wasn't even aware that I was like, I had to stop and I was like, the level of panic also increased after that, after she said that. And I was like made aware of like, oh shit, these are intense. And oh shit, my water just broke. And oh shit, we gotta go to the hospital. My husband was still like taking his time a little. Well, to me, it felt like he was taking his time when I was like, hurry the fuck up in my head. But outwardly, I was like, I think we need to go to the hospital. I think my water just broke. Situational mutism is real. While I'm in the car, every bump, like, oh my God, it was excruciating. Things were just ramping up real fast. And of course we have like all this shit that we have to like bring up there, and I can't carry any of it. So I'm waiting by the front, like with my arm on like this pillar with a mask on, you know, because it's COVID. I don't think anyone saw me, but if they did, they probably assumed, you know, what was going on because of the belly. So we go up there. It's very apparent real labor is happening. The nurse checks me before the midwife does with a speculum. Not fun. And she's like, "Oh, I see hair." Like, yay, but also when you go into the hospital, at least the one I went into, they take you to like a triage room. So it's not actually a delivery room while they are getting you checked in and like making sure you're like good to get put in a room. And I was there for like an hour. That felt like a really long time. My plan, my birth plan, which I typed and printed for myself, that I put in the hospital bag, stayed in the hospital bag for the end of time. That did not see the light of day. I couldn't even think to get it. Like, that's how focused I was on the labor process. How much the sensations were overpowering me. I couldn't like function, like even think to like do things normally. So I would advise anybody who has sensory issues or who's expecting their labor to be like intense, I would recommend having that birth plan. Give it to whoever needs it before you go into labor. Try to get all your ducks in a row before you go into labor, because once you're in it, it's like being on a roller coaster and trying to pour a cup of tea. The kettle's gonna go everywhere, you're gonna spill tea all over yourself, and you're gonna be screaming. So finally get put into the delivery room. I am in it. I'm at like a 10. Definitely at a 10. The midwife asks me, you know, do you want some pain relief? Do you want an epidural? And I was like, no, I think I'm gonna just wait. I should have gotten the epidural then. I'm on the ball. We decided to do the shower. I didn't want to go in the shower. I don't know what I wanted. I was like basically mute at this point. The contractions were like on top of each other. Literally sometimes like a contraction wouldn't even end and I'd be in another one because I could see it on the thingy. I remember it being the worst pain I've ever felt, ever, by a million degrees comparatively to any other pain I've ever experienced. Overwhelming. Couldn't even form thought to talk. I was just in a fog of otherworldly intensity. I wanted to have my camera up. I wanted to FaceTime my mom. My husband did actually get the music going, so there's that, but I wouldn't have even noticed. Like, I didn't really notice that the music was even there. There's no position that's comfortable. I'm like kind of wailing like a banshee. My poor husband, he's like, he was great though. It was so funny. Afterwards, I was like, what were you even doing? You weren't even helping me. You weren't even doing anything. He was like, oh my God. I was like right there with you the whole time. I was like, I was tending to you. Like literally the whole time. I did not leave your side. And I was like, whatever. So after the shower, be like 11:30 at night, I go finally, I want the epidural. Super fast. I think that they were amazing with how fast the anesthesiologist got there. You have to sit in like this really like curved position to get it, and you have to sit still while you're getting it. I was fine with that. I was like, I'm gonna sit still and I'm gonna get this thing because make it stop. I'm still wailing like a banshee during contractions, and the anesthesiologist was like, oh, you're having a contraction? I was like, yeah. He was really fast. He was super nice. I did go fully numb, so ideally with an epidural, like the best case scenario is you still have a little bit of pressure sensation, so you know when to push, and your legs aren't completely numb, so you can help you know, the nurses move you around if you need to. My legs were completely numb, couldn't move them, couldn't feel anything, which is great for the pain relief. I'm like, oh, yes, resting for about 5 fucking minutes. Unbeknownst to me, when I got the epidural, I was probably around 8 centimeters, I'm guessing, 8 to 9 centimeters, which is like the absolute like last cutoff point to being able to get an epidural. My rest was like 2 seconds. Then baby's heart rate dropped and the monitors started going off. I'm freaking out. My husband, like, he laid down, probably like closed his eyes for like a second and then jolted up. He's crying. I'm just like complete shock. And they're flipping me back and forth, like 10 people run in, bunch of nurses, midwife's there. You know, they give the call to get the doctor in, which like is scary, super scary. But that was one of the things I was worried about with the epidural. It can make baby's heart rate drop and it can affect baby and you can't really move around easily. And I'm like 190 pounds. I started involuntarily shaking, which can happen with an epidural as well. So I'm like, so from the time they run in, the midwife says, get the doctor. She checks me again and I'm 10. I am ready to push. And she's like, you're ready to push. Like, you're gonna have this baby. Okay, I don't know. I can't feel anything. You have to tell me when to push. I can't feel anything. She's like, yeah, I got you. You're good. And I just like pushed the living daylights out of everything I had for only about like 20 minutes. And she just shot out of me. Like, and I touch her head and her hair. And I'm just like, I'm pretty sure, and I don't know like 100%, but I'm pretty sure I felt her. And it was super slimy, her head. And I'm like, and I wipe it on my hospital gown and then keep pushing. Part of my birth plan was I didn't want to worry about cutting the cord. I was like, nope, I don't want to do that. My husband did, great. I didn't want to catch her. I didn't want to worry about catching her, like fumbling a slimy, wiggly, just born newborn. Like, no. She says, reach down, there's your baby. And I reach down and I freaking grab her out of me. And like, I didn't want to do that, but I did it. And whatever. This huge pressure relief. I can't even explain it. Just, like, and she was out and she was there and there's this cord and she's slimy and she's wiggly. And my husband was like cheering me on the whole time. I do remember him being like right here and he's like, you're doing great, sweetie. You're doing so good. Oh, he's the best. I just instantly, like, all the relief and like release, just sobbed like the ugliest cry ever. Like, happy, it's more or less over. She's out, she's safe. I didn't have to get a C-section. So much relief. She went right on my chest, like having the golden hour, which I think is pretty standard now. Oh, and she's just super quiet and like peaceful, looking up at me. We just enjoyed that moment as a family. He did snap a picture, one picture, right after she was born when she was on my chest. And she like rooted, she nursed like right away. We're still going strong on our breastfeeding, so that's really nice. She was 6 pounds, 7 ounces, just like a beautiful, healthy baby. A lot of the pain, a lot of the anxiety did fade away after she was born. Going from labor, delivery to, you know, the room with the baby had a whole other set of intensenesses. The postpartum period, I feel like, is a whole nother video. Birth is crazy. There's really nothing else in the human experience like it. You either have experienced it or you haven't. Like, it's so unique and it's so magical. Like, it happens all the time. Like, it's how we come into the world. Like, just to be born requires so much synergy with you and baby and the world, and it's just really spectacular. And I just want to end on how grateful I am that I walked away with a beautiful, healthy baby girl, both our lives and the growth of our family. Thanks for tuning in. I know this was kind of long and rambly, but I hope you enjoyed it. Love yourself, be kind to yourself, and catch you on the flip side.